And it was interesting to fly into Minneapolis, St. Paul today, because it very much brought me back to the Democratic and Republican conventions. You know, Democracy Now! Covers all the conventions. The whole team comes out, and we have a remarkable team of reporters and producers. You know, if you watch or listen to this daily hour broadcast, unembedded, independent, investigative, international news hour, it could not be done without the team of dedicated people who are completely committed to the mission of independent journalism and how important it is. So we headed to Denver for the Democratic Convention, and then we flew to St. Paul. And when we got to St. Paul, you know, the Republican convention began on Labor Day. And the first day of the Republican convention, that Monday, it was a beautiful blue sky day. And in the morning before the convention began, 10,000 people marched from the St. Paul City Hall to the convention center for peace against war. There were also marches, by the way, in Denver, and we covered those as well. So this was a completely peaceful march. Interestingly, it was led by soldiers, and soldiers who were taking great risks, some of them wearing their uniforms but saying war was not the answer, some who'd resisted going, and the numbers of soldiers, by the way, who've resisted going to war, it's a big untold story. Well over 8,000 have resisted, have said no. But then there are those soldiers who have gone to Iraq or to Afghanistan, have come back and lead the movement against it, particularly the organization Iraq Veterans Against the War. And some of them in full military regalia marched, and thousands of people followed them, and they spoke out against war as an answer to conflict. And we were covering all of this. We were with our microphones and our cameras, and then I went to the convention floor because the convention was beginning, and my colleagues went back to, we were broadcasting out at SPNN, St. Paul Neighborhood Network, the public access station in St. Paul. We had brought a truck. We were going to be broadcasting each day a 2-hour special. And my colleagues went back to digitize tape. I was on the convention floor with one of our cameramen, and I was interviewing delegates from the hottest state, from Alaska. And I got a call on my cell phone. Our senior producer, Mike Burke, said, come quickly to 7th and Jackson because Nicole and Sharif have been arrested and I think they're hurt. Nicole Salazar, a multimedia producer, Sharif Abdel-Quddus, our senior producer. He said, what are you talking about? And I raced off the convention floor. I had all of my credentials, you know, that allow me to interview presidents and vice presidents. You know, they're hanging around my neck, and delegates, and the cameraman is running with me. We're running down the streets. We get to 7th and Jackson, which is a big parking lot. And the riot police have surrounded the parking lot. They have it fully contained. I raced up. I had my credentials around my neck. I was somewhat out of breath. And I said, please, we have 2 reporters inside, 2 producers. They are credentialed like I am. We need to have them released. I need to speak to your commander, your supervising officer. And it wasn't seconds before they ripped me through those police lines, pulled my arms behind my back, slapped the handcuffs on, pushed me up against the wall and onto the ground, and arrested me, charged me with a misdemeanor, interfering with a peace officer. If only there was a peace officer in sight. I'm looking desperately for Nicole and Sharif. You know, I heard that they were hurt. I couldn't find Nicole, but I see Sharif across the parking lot. He's standing, arms behind his back, clearly handcuffed, and his arm is bleeding. I demand to be brought to him. Finally, they bring me over. We're both standing there. And we are repeating, we are journalists. We demand to be released. You can see we're journalists because we had the credentials around our necks, whereupon the Secret Service came and ripped the credentials off of our necks. Then they brought me to the police wagon, and Nicole was inside. And she had her credential around her neck. She was also handcuffed. She quickly described to me what had happened. She said they'd gone up to SPNN. They heard a commotion outside. They ran down, just doing their job, where they would have failed as if they'd stayed in the office when they heard a commotion outside. Nicole had the camera. Sharif had the microphone. They ran downstairs. They were filming. There were protesters, there were riot police. Nicole was filming, the riot police are coming at her. She ends up filming her own violent arrest. They're coming at her and they are shouting, "On your face, on your face." She's shouting back as she's holding the camera, holding up her press pass, saying, "Press, press, on your face, on your face." And they take her down, on her face, knee or boot in her back, and they're pulling on her leg, which drags her on her face, which bloodies her face. And the first thing they do as her camera tumbles down is pull the battery out of her camera. If you were wondering what it was, they wanted to stop happening. Sharif is a very cool person. He's telling the riot police to calm down. He is holding the mic. They throw him up against the wall. They kick him twice in the chest. They take him down, bloodying his arm. Nicole and Sharif faced felony riot charges. I was charged with a misdemeanor. So I'm taken off to the police garage where they've erected cages for the protesters. Sharif and Nicole are taken off to jail. Now, tonight, I had the honor of meeting a number of students and some professors here, students who are blogging tonight, tweeting tonight, taking photographs tonight, and they're doing a whole multimedia presentation of this presentation. And I can tell you it really does make a difference, because that night of the arrest, the video of our arrest went online within a half an hour or so. It was amazing. It went viral. It was the most watched video of the first 2 days of the convention. So many people wrote in, faxed in, called in, emailed in, tweeted in, demanding our release. Really, I believe it's what freed us within a number of hours. The massive protest, the concern about journalists being arrested, more than 40 journalists were arrested that week. To show, I got out eventually, and then Nicole and Sharif. Sharif was in a cell with the AP photographer. Sharif got out before the AP photographer. So we're taken out of jail, and then I'm taken over to the convention center because reporters want to interview me, and I am brought to the NBC skybox. And after I tell the story on camera and the camera's closed, an NBC reporter was standing next to me, and he was listening, and he looked very puzzled. And as soon as the camera was turned off, he said to me, "I don't get it. Why wasn't I arrested?" I said, "Oh, were you outside covering the protests?" And he said, "No." I said, "Well, I'm not being arrested in the skybox either." See, as Woody Allen says, 90% of life is just showing up. First, you got to go out there. And that's not a minor point. It's our job to be on the convention floor, to cover what people are saying, what the delegates are saying, what the debates are on the floor, the orchestrated message of the parties. It's our job to try to get into those corporate suites. Who's paying for all of this? For the Republican Governors Association, for the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee. I can't tell you how many doors I had slammed in my face as I tried to make my way into these little parties and just find out who was paying for the strawberries and the champagne. And it's also our job to be in the streets, right? Because those are the uninvited guests, and there are thousands of them. And they have something to say as well. Democracy is a messy thing, and it's our job to capture it all. And we shouldn't have to get a record to put things on the record. That was my experience in St. Paul.